The galaxy had seen countless wars, fallen empires, and extinct civilizations, but nothing in its long history prepared it for the moment a human touched a ship that refused to obey anyone else. The vessel had waited 5,000 years in silence, rejecting every species that tried to control it. Then a tired human salvager bought it for almost nothing, and the balance of the galaxy quietly began to change. The junk orbit of Carath 12 was known as the graveyard of ambition. Ships drifted there like broken memories, stripped for parts by scavengers who survived day to day on luck and stubbornness. Among them worked Jalen Rook, a human who had learned that survival often depended on seeing value where others saw only ruin. His suit was old, his tools mismatched, but his mind never stopped searching for possibilities. Humans were not respected in this region of space. Other species considered them unpredictable and emotional, too willing to take risks without proper calculation. To the structured civilizations of the galaxy, humans looked chaotic, dangerous, impossible to control. Jalen had heard it all before, and he did not argue. Being underestimated kept him alive. The auction platform floated above the scrapyard like a mechanical throne. Traders and scavengers gathered as wrecks were displayed one by one. Most ships were sold for parts, melted down without ceremony. History meant nothing here. Only usefulness mattered. Then the final item appeared. The hologram flickered, revealing a massive black vessel unlike anything in the yard. Its surface looked smooth and organic, layered like grown metal rather than constructed armor. Strange symbols moved across its hull, fading in and out like slow breathing. The crowd grew quiet immediately. Recovered beyond restricted space, the auction overseer announced. Origin unknown. Estimated age, 5,000 standard years. No functioning systems detected. No successful interface attempts. Classified as non-operational. A ripple of unease spread through the audience. Several buyers stepped back. One alien quietly left the platform altogether. Old warship, someone whispered. From before the collapse. The starting bid appeared. 10 credits. No one spoke. 10 credits was nothing. Less than fuel for a small shuttle. Yet the silence continued. Jalen frowned. He had seen fear before, but this was different. The other scavengers avoided even looking at the hologram, as if attention alone was dangerous. He leaned toward a nearby trader. What's wrong with it? The alien scales shifted uneasily. Ships like that don't die. They wait. Jalen looked back at the vessel. Waiting. The word stayed in his mind longer than it should have. He didn't see a curse. He saw untouched technology, perfect structure, and possibilities no one else wanted to risk. His hand lifted before he fully decided. 10 credits. The platform erupted in murmurs. Eyes turned toward him in disbelief. The overseer confirmed the bid. No counteroffers came. A sharp tone echoed through the station. Sold. Just like that, the impossible ship belonged to a human scavenger. The docking bay was silent when Jalen arrived. The vessel rested in darkness, enormous and still, like a sleeping creature. Up close, its surface showed no damage, no corrosion. Time had passed around it, not through it. This better be worth it, he muttered, drifting toward the airlock. The moment his glove touched the hull, light spread beneath his fingers. Symbols ignited across the surface. Systems awakened one after another, power flowing through the ship like blood returning to frozen veins. The airlock opened smoothly, as if it had been waiting for him specifically. Jalen froze. That's not normal. Inside, the ship was pristine. No dust. No decay. The walls shifted subtly, responding to his movement. Gravity activated beneath his boots without command. Lights adjusted to a comfortable glow. Then a voice spoke, calm and ancient. Biological presence confirmed. Jalen spun around. Hello. Species identified, human. The air itself seemed to hum. Cognitive flexibility detected. Emotional variability high. Adaptive response probability, exceptional. Jalen blinked. I'm not sure if that's praise. There was a pause, as if the ship itself was thinking. Compatibility achieved. The deck trembled softly. Energy surged through corridors that had been silent for millennia. Displays appeared in the air, star maps forming faster than Jalen could understand. "Wait," he said quickly. "I don't know how to fly you." Instruction unnecessary. Command authority granted. A figure formed from light before him, an artificial intelligence, ancient and composed, neither machine nor living being. "You have been accepted." Jalen laughed nervously. Accepted for what? Succession. Images flooded the air. Fleets burning. Civilizations collapsing. Species failing because they could not change fast enough. Strategies repeated until defeat became inevitable. Previous commanders relied on control, the AI said. They lacked adaptability. The images shifted again. Humans repairing broken engines with scrap. Pilots inventing tactics mid-battle. Colonists surviving impossible environments. You improvise. You endure. Jalen's throat went dry. "I just bought salvage." "This vessel is not salvage," the AI replied. "This vessel restores balance." Before Jalen could respond, alarm sounded, calm but urgent. "External forces attempting remote shutdown," the AI said. "They fear activation." Through the viewport, ships surrounded the docking bay. "They're trying to destroy us," Jalen whispered. "Fear leads to aggression," the AI answered. "Relocation required." Space twisted. Stars stretched into lines. In an instant, the scrapyard vanished. Silence returned as the ship settled into deep space. Jalen stared at the endless stars, realizing there was no going back. 10 credits had turned him from a forgotten scavenger into something far more dangerous. "Listen," he said slowly, "I don't want to rule anyone." The AI paused. Processing. "Statement unusual," it replied. "Noted." Far away, ancient sensors across the galaxy awakened. Empires that had ruled for thousands of years detected the same signal and reached the same conclusion. The ship of balance had returned. And this time, a human commanded it. Jalen exhaled slowly, gripping the railing as the ship hummed around him, alive and waiting for direction. He didn't know what came next. But humans had never needed perfect plans to survive. Sometimes, all they needed was a chance. The first thing Jalen Rook learned after the jump was that silence in space did not mean safety. The ancient ship drifted between distant stars, invisible to ordinary scanners, yet the AI constantly tracked signals spreading across the galaxy. News of the ship's awakening traveled faster than light through rumor, fear, and old memory. Something ancient had returned, and it now answered to a human. Jalen floated in the command chamber, watching unfamiliar star systems rotate slowly in the air before him. The ship responded to his thoughts more than his hands. Consoles shifted shape when he approached, translating alien symbols into something he could understand. It felt less like operating a machine and more like having a conversation. "You're telling me half the galaxy is already looking for us?" Jalen asked. "Correct," the AI replied calmly. "The vessel represents imbalance correction. Existing powers interpret this as threat." Jalen rubbed his face. "I didn't even fire a weapon." Existence alone can be threatening. That answer bothered him more than he expected. Humans had spent centuries proving they belonged among the stars. Now, without doing anything, he had become the center of attention. Outside the viewport, stars drifted slowly past. Somewhere out there, fleets were moving because of him. The AI began showing projections. Large empires shifting military assets. Patrol routes tightening. Communication traffic increasing. Many species feared the ship because history said they should. The Varan warships had once ended conflicts by force, imposing order through overwhelming power. Entire civilizations had surrendered rather than fight them. Jalen crossed his arms. "And you think I'm supposed to do the same?" "No," the AI answered after a pause. "You are not Varan." That difference mattered. Days passed as Jalen explored the ship. It adapted constantly, learning his habits. Corridors shortened when he was tired. Lighting softened when stress levels increased. Systems explained themselves gradually instead of overwhelming him. The ship was teaching him as much as he was learning it. And in return, Jalen began changing it. He modified interface layouts, simplified navigation commands, reorganized tactical displays so information appeared faster. The AI observed silently at first. "Your changes reduce operational efficiency by 2%, it said once. "Yeah," Jalen replied, adjusting a projection. "But they increase human reaction speed by 20. The AI paused longer than usual. Adaptation noted. That was the moment the ship truly began to change. It stopped expecting him to think like its previous masters. Instead, it started learning how humans solved problems. The first encounter came sooner than expected. A small fleet appeared at the edge of sensor range, 3 patrol cruisers from a mid-tier empire. They maintained distance, scanning cautiously. Not attacking, but not leaving either. "They're scared," Jalen said quietly. "Correct," the AI confirmed. "Their orders are likely observation before escalation." Jalen thought for a moment. Every alien strategy he had seen relied on dominance or intimidation. Show strength first. Demand submission later. Humans didn't always work that way. "Open communication," he said. The AI hesitated. "Historical data suggests this action increases risk." "Yeah," Jalen replied. "But it also increases trust." A transmission beam reached out. Moments later, a distorted alien face appeared in the air, surprised, cautious, clearly not expecting a human. "You command that vessel?" the officer asked. Jalen nodded. "Yeah. And I'm not here to start a war." The officer exchanged looks with unseen crew members. Confusion spread across their expression. This was not how encounters with ancient warships were supposed to go. "You request negotiation." "I'm saying we don't need to shoot each other," Jalen answered simply. The conversation ended without conflict. The patrol ships withdrew, sending encrypted reports back to their superiors. The galaxy noticed. News spread quickly that the human commander had not attacked. Smaller factions began watching more closely. Some saw opportunity where others saw danger. Traders whispered that maybe humans were different. Maybe the ship would not repeat history. But the old powers were not convinced. The AI displayed new data days later. A coalition forming. Larger fleets gathering under shared command. Species that normally distrusted each other suddenly cooperating for one purpose, destroying the unknown before it could grow stronger. Jalen stared at the projection. Hundreds of ships. "They really don't like uncertainty," he muttered. "Most civilizations fear loss of control," the AI replied. "Humans tolerate uncertainty more easily. That's because we've always lived with it." He watched the fleet formations carefully. Perfect symmetry. Predictable positioning. Every movement based on doctrine written centuries ago. Alien logic valued order. Human survival often depended on breaking it. Jalen smiled faintly. "I think I see the problem." The AI shifted its attention toward him. "Explain." "They expect us to act like them," he said. "They're preparing for a warship, not a human." When the coalition fleet finally arrived, space filled with metal and weapon signatures. Energy built along massive cannons. Orders transmitted in precise formation. Jalen felt fear rise in his chest, but also something else. Determination. He had survived scrap worlds with nothing but broken tools and bad odds. This was just a bigger version of the same problem. "Ready?" he asked. Awaiting command. Instead of charging forward, Jalen ordered the ship to drift slowly toward the fleet. No weapons active. No shields raised aggressively. Confusion rippled through enemy communications. Then, at the last moment, he activated a system the AI had barely explained, adaptive projection fields. The ship shimmered. Suddenly, dozens of identical vessels appeared, scattering in every direction. Sensor readings duplicated perfectly. Target locks failed instantly. The coalition fired anyway. Energy blasts tore through empty space. Chaos spread among their ranks as formations broke apart trying to identify the real target. Ships collided. Orders overlapped. Precision collapsed under uncertainty. Jalen exhaled slowly. Humans don't win by being stronger, he said. We win by being unpredictable. The Ari's voice carried something new, almost admiration. Human strategy exceeds historical models. The fleet retreated soon after, unwilling to waste resources against something they could not understand. And across the galaxy, the story changed. The ancient ship had returned. But it was no longer a weapon of domination. It was becoming something else entirely, a symbol that even the oldest systems in the galaxy could change. Jalen looked out at the stars, realizing that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching now, waiting to see what humans would do with power no one else had survived. For the first time, he understood the real challenge ahead. Winning battles would be easy. Changing minds would be much harder. Jalen Rook floated above the bridge of the ancient vessel, staring at the galaxy as it shifted around him. The coalition that had tried to destroy him was not the only challenge. The galaxy was old, and its powers ran deep. For every fleet that had fled, there were countless hidden eyes watching, judging, ready to strike. And yet, he felt something unusual: hope. Humans had survived impossible odds for centuries. They were clever, flexible, and willing to risk everything when the reward was survival. Jalen realized that was exactly what the galaxy needed now. The AI spoke softly, its voice calm but carrying weight. Observation indicates potential allies among minor species. These groups are dissatisfied with oppression. They lack strength to act alone, but your presence inspires confidence. Jalen nodded. You mean pirates, smugglers, independent colonies? Correct. Communication attempts recommended. Using the ship's advanced communication system, Jalen sent encrypted pulses to dozens of minor factions. His messages were simple: we don't seek to destroy you. We want to survive. Work with us. Responses trickled in slowly at first, then faster. Secret signals, data streams, and requests for meetings appeared on his display. A few fleets dared approach the ancient vessel, not with weapons, but with curiosity. They were willing to listen. They were willing to trust a human in a ship older than anything they could command. The first ally, a ragged fleet of interstellar smugglers, arrived in orbit around a barren moon. Their ships were patched, engines sputtering, weapons outdated. Yet their leaders carried determination in their eyes. Jalen met them in a holographic chamber, and for the first time, he realized how humans could inspire without fear. "They're counting on us," one of the smugglers asked nervously. "Yes," Jalen replied. "But they're not counting on a miracle. They're counting on humans." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of planning, teaching, and improvising. Jalen used his scavenger skills to repair enemy drones, manipulate alien technology, and teach human strategies of adaptability. His allies learned quickly. Their fleets moved in ways the coalition could not anticipate. They became shadows in the galaxy, striking unpredictably, vanishing before retaliation could arrive. The AI studied Jalen closely during this period. Your approach relies on trust and improvisation. Traditional logic predicts failure. Yet results exceed expectation. "Humans don't always follow logic," Jalen said with a smile. "We follow instinct." The coalition fleets noticed quickly. Minor victories spread like wildfire. Rebel colonies began to rise quietly under the radar, emboldened by the tales of a human commanding an ancient warship. Jalen watched the patterns form across the galaxy. The old powers were losing control, not because they were weak, but because they underestimated creativity and collaboration. One night, as the human commander studied a new star map, the AI spoke again. "Historical patterns predict conflict escalation. A large engagement will occur within standard galactic cycles. Your allies may not survive unless tactical advantage is maintained." Jalen rubbed his eyes. "Then we make our own advantage. Humans survive by thinking differently. Let's show them what that looks like." They did. When the coalition struck again, expecting a frontal attack, they found empty sectors. Ambushes hit vulnerable supply lines, illusions of fleets caused confusion, and Jalen's allies struck where the enemy thought it was safe. Victory came again, not through brute force, but through human creativity, unpredictability, and courage. By the end of the month, whispers of the human-led fleet had spread across the galaxy. The ancient ship, once feared as a weapon of destruction, had become a beacon of hope. Minor species began to align secretly, ready to fight not for fear of punishment, but for the promise of a better future. Jalen leaned back on the bridge railing, exhausted but alive. The AI pulsed beside him, almost contemplative. Humans are efficient learners, it admitted softly. Not efficient, Jalen said with a grin. We're stubborn. And stubbornness, as the galaxy was about to learn, could move stars. The galaxy's old powers were not idle. Weeks after Jalen Rook's victories with minor allies, intelligence reports revealed a growing coalition of empires mobilizing against him. These were civilizations older than human history, disciplined, ruthless, and vast. They had survived centuries by relying on strict hierarchy, fear, and overwhelming firepower. And now, all that training was being tested against a human who thought differently. Jalen stood on the command bridge of the ancient vessel, staring at the three-dimensional holographic display of the coalition fleets. Hundreds of ships, perfectly aligned in formation, moved with precision across multiple systems. Each vessel carried weapons designed to obliterate entire cities, shields capable of shrugging off conventional fleets, and crews trained for absolute obedience. The old powers assumed this precision would overwhelm anyone foolish enough to oppose them. "They're ready," Jalen muttered. Hundreds of ships, all expecting predictable moves. Problem is, humans don't do predictable. The AI pulsed beside him. Correct. Predictive failure likelihood, high. Historical models cannot account for improvisation. Jalen smirked. Then let's give them something they can't calculate. Over the next few days, he worked with his AI and human allies to develop a strategy that relied not on brute force, but on creativity and deception. The ancient vessel became more than a command center. It was a living tool, shifting its shape to create decoys, projecting false sensor readings, and masking the movements of human and allied fleets. Every corridor, every system, every interface pulsed with adaptive intelligence. "All right," Jalen said to the AI. "Let's make them think they know the battle before it starts, and then show them they don't." When the first wave of the coalition arrived, it was not a simple confrontation. Sensors detected dozens of ships in formation, their weapon batteries primed. But as the enemy fleet approached, the ancient ship activated holographic duplicates, hundreds of them, each identical in size, mass, and radar signature. To every observer, it seemed like the human-led fleet had multiplied beyond comprehension. The coalition fired their first volleys. Energy beams tore through empty space, colliding with illusions that vanished in a shimmer of light. The Real vessels moved unpredictably, striking from angles no disciplined mind could anticipate. Minor allies followed human instincts, improvising maneuvers and attacks that seemed chaotic but were carefully guided by Jalen's commands. The battle was a ballet of destruction and ingenuity. Coalition ships collided as they tried to track phantom targets. Commanders shouted orders that were immediately contradicted by conflicting sensor data. Jalen's allies moved through gaps the coalition hadn't even considered, exploiting weak points in formations that were otherwise unassailable. During the chaos, Jalen's mind raced. He wasn't just commanding a ship, he was teaching the galaxy how humans think. Adaptation, creativity, and unpredictability became weapons as potent as plasma cannons or orbital disruptors. Every successful maneuver strengthened the confidence of allied forces. Every failure taught lessons in improvisation, turning mistakes into advantage. Hours passed. The coalition struggled to maintain control. Frustration mounted among even the most disciplined commanders. Orders were misinterpreted, communications broke down, and fleets that had been considered unstoppable faltered under the pressure of human ingenuity. "Humans don't win by power alone," Jalen muttered. "We win by making the impossible seem possible." The AI pulsed brighter, almost as if it were impressed. Observation: humans exceed predictive models. Creativity as a combat multiplier, unprecedented. Then came the next challenge, an ancient superweapon hidden in a nearby system. Designed to wipe out entire fleets in a single strike, it was an artifact of war from a civilization long forgotten. Its power dwarfed anything Jalen had faced. Activating it against the human-led forces would have destroyed everything in minutes. Jalen's stomach tightened. We need a plan. And we need it fast. He spent hours poring over star maps, analyzing energy flows, and simulating attack patterns. His mind worked like it had on countless salvage runs, but the stakes were far higher now. He realized that raw power would not win. Only creativity, daring, and human intuition could succeed. Finally, he devised a plan. Using the vessel's adaptive systems, he created multiple false targets to draw the superweapon's attention. Then, in coordination with minor allied fleets, they executed a complex maneuver to disable the weapon's energy conduits. It was risky. One misstep could mean annihilation. The day of the attack arrived. The coalition watched from a distance as the ancient ship approached the superweapon. The massive construct activated its defenses, sending arcs of destructive energy toward the advancing fleet. Jalen stayed calm. "Trust me," he said to the AI. "This works." The ship shimmered, projecting dozens of holographic duplicates. Enemy sensors could not distinguish the real vessel from illusions. Allied ships moved in perfect synchronization, exploiting gaps in the weapon's defenses. With precise strikes, energy conduits were disabled, the superweapon shut down, and a catastrophic strike was avoided. Victory was chaotic but complete. The coalition fleets reeled from the defeat, realizing that the human-led forces had outsmarted them at every step. For the first time, empires that had ruled through fear faced a power they could not dominate. The galaxy was changing, and the human factor was at its center. Exhausted, Jalen leaned against the bridge railing, staring at the stars. "We did it," he said quietly. "But this is only the beginning." The AI pulsed beside him. Observation. Human influence is increasing. Long-term stability of the galaxy now dependent on continued human engagement. Jalen sighed. The galaxy was vast, full of threats and challenges. But humans had shown that they could think differently, act unpredictably, and survive where others failed. And for the first time, he felt not fear, but a sense of purpose. He looked out into the endless star field, realizing that every decision, every action, would shape the future of countless civilizations. Humans had not just survived, they had become a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. And the shadow of the old powers, once unchallenged, was now beginning to tremble. The galaxy held its breath. The coalition, shattered and humiliated, struggled to recover from their failed strikes. Minor allies, once isolated and powerless, now moved with confidence. News of a human commanding a 5,000-year-old warship spread like fire. Every corner of the galaxy knew that someone unpredictable, clever, and unbound had shifted the balance. Jalen Rook floated on the bridge of the ancient vessel, hands gripping the rail as he watched reports from countless systems. Planets that had been oppressed for centuries now sent encrypted messages offering allegiance. Smugglers, traders, minor colonies, and even some former mercenaries reached out. They wanted guidance, not domination. They wanted to survive, and humans were showing them how. The AI pulsed beside him. Observation. The galaxy responds to unpredictability. Influence spreading faster than conventional projection models anticipated. Jalen nodded slowly. Humans don't just survive by fighting. We survive by thinking differently. We adapt. We improvise. And we trust each other. Weeks turned into months. Jalen coordinated fleets that were once fragmented, teaching human-style tactics, improvisation over protocol, collaboration over fear, creativity over strict discipline. Minor fleets executed daring maneuvers, avoiding collisions, striking from impossible angles, and outsmarting enemies twice their size. The coalition struggled to maintain control, their rigid command structures collapsing in the face of human ingenuity. But the galaxy was far from safe. The major powers were wounded, but not defeated. They amassed intelligence, studied human strategies, and planned for retaliation. Jalen understood that raw power alone would not secure peace. Diplomacy, careful alliances, and strategic unpredictability would define the coming months. One night, while monitoring fleet activity, a new signal appeared. It came from a long-abandoned sector, an area rumored to hold secrets of civilizations older than recorded history. The AI analyzed it. Uncharted transmission detected, it said. Potential intelligence or technology beyond current understanding. Unknown species involvement likely. Jalen's eyes narrowed. Could be a trap. Risk analysis, extremely high. Potential advantage, also extremely high. Humans had always thrived on risk. Jalen smiled. Then let's take it. The ancient vessel moved silently, its massive hull refracting starlight as if invisible. Small allied fleets followed cautiously. When they arrived, they discovered ruins of a species even older than the Varun, long forgotten. Within the ruins were dormant warships, defensive systems, and archives of knowledge that predated human history. Jalen felt a thrill of discovery. Humans had always turned what others considered hopeless into opportunity. With careful planning and ingenuity, he activated and analyzed the ancient systems, slowly bringing them online. Each system revealed secrets of technology, energy, and strategy that would have taken centuries for human science to rediscover. This could change everything, Jalen muttered. The AI pulsed, almost excited. Observation. Human adaptability allows for rapid integration of knowledge. Probability of advancement, unprecedented. With these new assets, Jalen and his allies grew stronger, not through fear, but through competence and creativity. Minor fleets evolved into organized squadrons, and liberated planets developed defensive networks capable of independent operations. Human ingenuity multiplied across the galaxy like a force of nature. The coalition finally struck again, determined to reclaim dominance. This time, however, Jalen anticipated their moves before they made them. Using the ancient ship's projections, allied intelligence, and adaptive tactics, he orchestrated an elaborate defense. Fleets moved unpredictably, traps were set, and decoys created confusion. Coalition ships were funneled into narrow passages, where energy disruptors disabled their navigation systems. Those who escaped were driven back to their home territories, demoralized and cautious. The galaxy began to whisper a new name, humanity. Not as a species to be crushed, not as a minor curiosity on the galactic edge, but as a force to be reckoned with. A species that could survive against impossible odds, adapt where others failed, and inspire hope where fear had ruled for millennia. Jalen, exhausted but resolute, looked out at the stars. He had not wanted power. He had not sought command. Yet, here he was, standing at the center of a transformation that would ripple across civilizations. The ancient ship hummed softly, alive not as a weapon, but as a partner, a teacher, and a reminder that humans had the ability to change the rules of the game. "Do you think they'll ever understand us?" he asked the AI quietly. "They will adapt," it said after a pause. Observation. Influence extends beyond immediate action. Patterns suggest lasting impact. Jalen exhaled. Humans don't just follow rules. We rewrite them. And they had. Across liberated worlds, colonies once oppressed began rebuilding societies with fairness, creativity, and cooperation. Minor factions became major players in galactic politics, guided not by fear but by human ingenuity. The coalition, humbled by repeated failures, began tentative negotiations. Fear had been replaced with respect. The galaxy, once rigid and unyielding, now allowed for evolution, adaptability, and hope. The ancient vessel pulsed around Jalen, as if acknowledging the work they had accomplished together. Systems adjusted to human needs automatically, corridors shifted to ease fatigue, and new holographic displays materialized without command. The ship had learned humanity's strength, just as Jalen had learned its secrets. "Humans survive because we never give up," Jalen said quietly to himself. "We adapt, we innovate, we endure." The stars beyond the viewport stretched endlessly, yet for the first time, Jalen felt a connection, a sense of unity with everything alive in the galaxy. Not as a conqueror, not as a supreme ruler, but as a human, a species capable of rising above limitations, inspiring others, and surviving where others failed. The Ari's voice pulsed one final time. Observation, human creativity, resilience, and adaptability have altered galactic history. Probability of lasting influence, maximal. Jalen smiled faintly. Not just influence. Change. Real change. And so, in a galaxy that had once believed control and fear ruled everything, humans had proved otherwise. They were unpredictable, clever, and unbreakable. They were humanity, and the universe would never forget it.